Hi, this is Lara at Elliott Wave Stock Market with your weekly US oil analysis done on Tuesday 23rd of July. I'm recording this video now 5 to 11 late in the evening New York time, Tuesday the 23rd New York time. At the daily chart level, I'm expecting we may have just had a really big trend change for oil and the end of a big intermediate degree zigzag. Within intermediate wave 2, there is no Fibonacci ratio between minor wave C and A, but within minor wave C there are some nice ratios. Within minor wave C there's no ratio between minute waves 1 and 3, but minute wave 5 is just 6 cents longer than 0.382 the length of minute wave 1, and it all subdivides quite nicely as a 5-wave impulse on the hourly chart. On the hourly chart, I've drawn a trend channel around minor wave C from the low of 2 to 4, the end of a triangle, and I've placed a parallel copy on the high of 1. That trend channel is really clearly breached in the last day with some downwards movement on the hourly chart. Eventually, when we get a breach of this wider channel I've drawn on the monthly and weekly charts and copied over here to the daily, when we see a full daily candlestick below this parallel channel and not touching the lower trend line, we shall have trend channel confirmation that the zigzag for intermediate wave 2 is over, and the impulse down for intermediate wave 3 should then be confirmed as underway. At 55.09, intermediate wave 3 would reach 1.618, the length of intermediate wave 1. And within this third wave, no second wave correction may move beyond the start of the first wave. This wave count is invalidated now with movement above 108.92. Let's have a look at the end of this C wave on the hourly chart with the end of minute wave 3 up here. It's just off to the left of the chart, and here's the end of the fourth wave, which subdivided as a triangle, not a flat. I was expecting last week some more downwards movement for the end of the fourth wave. We didn't get that. We got a bunch of choppy, overlapping sideways movement as it completed not a flat correction but a triangle. There's perfect alternation between minute waves 2 and 4 within this impulse for minor wave C. Minute wave 2 was a very brief, sharp, deep zigzag, and minute wave 4 is a much more time-consuming, choppy, overlapping, sideways moving triangle. I've checked the subdivisions of this triangle on the 5-minute chart, and it all subdivides beautifully, especially the little E wave in here subdivides perfectly as a contracting triangle, and the BD trend line is adhered to. But despite the E wave falling well short of the AC trend line, it all has a really typical look. I'm also confident that this is where the fourth wave ends because that gives the fifth wave such a nice ratio to the first. And then when we look at the ratios within the fifth wave, we find some remarkably good Fibonacci ratios. Minuet wave 3 within this impulse is just 1 cent short of 2.618, the length of minuet wave 1, and minuet wave 5 is exactly equal to 1.618, the length of the first wave. So those excellent Fibonacci ratios within this movement and between this whole movement and the first wave at minute degree and the structure of the little triangle on the 5-minute chart in here give me confidence that I have labelled this structure correctly up to this point at least. From this point on downwards, the problem with this wave count today, well, it's not a problem with the wave count, it's just that we have a lack of confirmation of a trend change because we don't have a nice clear 5-wave structure downwards yet on the hourly chart. From this high to this low, it is not possible to label this movement as a leading contracting diagonal, although it kind of does look like it might want to be. The subdivisions just don't fit. Within a leading diagonal, this would be subwave 1, 3 and 5. The problem is subwave 1 does not subdivide into either a zigzag or an impulse. This movement here on the 5-minute chart subdivides perfectly as a leading contracting diagonal itself, and you can't have a subwave of a diagonal itself subdividing as a diagonal. So this is a series of a couple of overlapping first and second waves, which is actually really common. So within the new downwards trend, possibly, we may have 1, 2, and within the third wave, 1 and a big expanded flat for a second, just falling short of the 0.618 Fibonacci ratio. If microwave 2 were to move any higher, it may not move beyond the start of 1 above 108.58. Next week, I would hope to see a nice clear 5-wave structure downwards on the hourly chart. If we get that, that would give me more confidence that we have indeed had a trend change. I'm just going to quickly go back to the daily chart. Actually, there's one other thing I wanted to point out. We have a beautiful candlestick pattern up here. We have a nice evening doji star with these 3 candlesticks here. So that's another indication that we have got a high in place finally, and we have had a big trend change for oil. If we were to see movement above 110.56 in the next week, if the main wave count is invalidated at the hourly and then the daily chart level and price were to keep rising, this is the only viable alternate that I can see at this stage. I don't have a lot of confidence in it because it just doesn't have a very good look. My main wave count is the same at cycle degree to this point here, and then my main wave count sees cycle wave B over here with the 1, 2, 1, 2 series of overlapping first and second waves at primary and then intermediate degree with a third wave down to start. But this alternate looks at the possibility that cycle wave B may not be over and may be continuing further as a double zigzag. The purpose of a double zigzag is to deepen a correction when the first zigzag doesn't take price deep enough. But at this point here, price is already quite a deep correction. So for it to move deeper, certainly possible, not usually how double zigzags look though. But the biggest problem I have with this wave count is this movement here. It is very choppy, overlapping sideways movement, and you do want to try and see a contracting triangle in here. But when you look at the subwaves on the daily and the hourly chart, they can all be seen as 3s. That is possible, but the problem is this big overshoot of the BD trend line here. That just does not have the right look for a contracting triangle, and I would not want to try and put intermediate wave D somewhere in here. This is where it fits best. So with this very strange look for intermediate wave E that reduces the probability of this wave count, I will only consider it seriously if it's confirmed with movement above 110.56. So I'm expecting we've had a very recent big trend change for oil, and we're just starting on a third wave down at intermediate degree, with that really nice candlestick pattern at the end of intermediate wave 2 and those beautiful Fibonacci ratios within it. I'm reasonably confident of that wave count. The only thing I want to see now is a really clear 5 down on the hourly chart to have more confidence in this trend change. That's all for me today with your oil analysis, and I hope everyone had a fabulous week.